Joan, how you doing? Joan?
Yes,
Hey, can you hear me? Hi, how you doing?
I am doing fine.
Good, thanks for coming.
Well, you're welcome. You are a senior planner, I see.
That's right.
Okay. I am a resident of Newark,
Oh, very, very good.
fairly new.
How'd you hear about the event?
Couple of ways. I do get Paul Bombach's e-newsletter. He listed it.
Okay.
I also heard, the Newark Partnership. I read that. I read their newsletter.
Oh, good.
I think they mentioned it as well.
Good, good.
And there may have been another source that I can't recall
Sure.
at the moment. How's the turnout been at these meetings?
They've been, I'd say, fairly good. It's the first time I've done anything like this. Usually these be in-person events, but and I'll explain the thing. But I say we get about between 8 and 11 people have been showing up to these.
Okay.
Now, because this one seems to be a little late. I mean, here I am a couple minutes to 7. It's just you and I, so maybe
I
people
see.
had their share. So
And I have my video off. Obviously.
That's fine. You can keep it off. It's fine. Here, oh, we got one. Yeah, Alicia, how you doing? All right. Alicia, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Oh, very well, thank you. So, Joan, is that your computer fan? I think I can hear your computer fan, or there's a vacuum going on.
Am I what? A computer fan.
Well, it sounds like something's going on in the background.
Oh, in the background.
Yeah.
Hey, James Horning.
How about it? Celebrity. James, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good, no, thank you. Thank you for having it.
No problem. It's 7 o'clock, and I'll give it just a few more minutes, and then we'll start up.
Mike, do you plan to post a recording of this meeting?
It is being recorded. That's right.
Okay, and then it'll be posted to the Planning and Development Department.
Um, I plan on making a summary at least. I'm sorry, Howard. I can post these things. I have them. I'm sorry, I'm letting some people in here.
That's okay. No, I was just curious.
Mostly when I compilate these things, they're not like a FOIA type. These aren't FOIA type meetings. They didn't have the same. And so I guess it depends what the group wants me to do. If they want me to post these, or I can get you copies of them. If not, but I'd certainly be happy to if that's what direction I get.
Okay. No, I haven't. I don't need to like hear everyone. I was just curious if somebody wanted to attend but couldn't make the exact time. I think at least attend one that was already recorded or something. But we can talk offline about that. You don't have to get into it now. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, I got a couple minutes after. We have a nice little group here. My name is Mike Fortner. I'm a planner with the city of Newark. And this is we call it a virtual coffee break. I don't have I'm actually drinking water at this hour. But it's meant as sort of a couple of goals is to do outreach to the community. We are doing with our comprehensive development plan, what we call a 5-year review. And we did a very thorough rewrite of our comprehensive plan in 2016. And it was 5 years ago, and we're doing a kind of a review. We're looking at sort of the provisions in the plan, some of its goals and action items. And we're looking at the past 5 years and seeing if some of those goals are still appropriate, if they need tweaking. So we got Stu Markham coming in. Hi, Stu. And there's a steering committee. Whoop, I'm not gonna be able to get out of it, but and they're doing this review. I've been doing these kinds of things for a while now, and doing online because of the pandemic. And the nice part about it is it's easy to do these things. It's easy for people to attend them because they're so easy to come to. One of the more difficult parts of these virtual meetings is it's hard to get a good discussion at these things, and for probably lots of reasons. And it's also hard to it's hard for me to kind of read the room. It's hard for me to know if I'm being boring or if I'm being very interesting. So the way I try to handle that is during the whole time, I'm just going to assume I'm killing it. And first of all, I like to go around just, we have several people in. I'm just going to go around and ask people to kind of introduce themselves, just get kind of a little discussion going. We can ask questions. I have about 15 slides to go through. I'll stop during them, and we can ask questions during the thing or any discussion as we proceed. And at the end, it's intended to be sort of a focus group. At the end, I collect your feedback, hear your thoughts on local planning issues. Just real quick, first person I see is Joan. Would you mind just introducing yourself and where you live or what you represent?
Hello, everyone. I'm Joan Schreider. My husband and I moved to Newark about 2.5 years ago, and we live in District 1, and our District 1 representative is attending the meeting tonight. So I'm pleased about that. And I am generally curious about all things Newark, and I thought this might be a informative meeting. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. I see Allison. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Allison Nemero. My family and I moved to Newark a little less than 2 years ago. My husband's a professor at UD, and I'm an urban planner by trade. So I'm interested to, now that we're settled, we just bought a house in Ridgewood Glen near the reservoir. I'm interested to kind of understand what's going on in city planning in Newark.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. I see Aisha. Would you mind introducing yourself? And she's also a committee member from on our steering committee, but go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So this is Aisha Bilal. I'm a second year PhD student at the University of Delaware in the Urban Affairs and Public Policy program. And like Michael said, I'm a student representative at the steering committee. I've been here for around 2 years now and happy to see all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. James, excuse me, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, James Horning. I'm the city council member for District 1. And I live in Nottingham Green on Tufts Lane.
Thank you. Then I see Howard. Howard, would you mind introducing yourself? They can. Howard might not be able to, or someone that's fine. I might come back to you, but Mary Claire, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Mary Claire Matsumoto. I'm a resident in District 6.
Thank you, Mary Claire.
And I had trouble logging on. The link didn't work.
Oh yeah, did you went through the calendar app and it didn't? You had trouble.
Yeah, I did it through the calendar app and it linked me. It said the meeting is already over. It was actually for March 8th at 10 o'clock. So then I had to go back and just write out the number that was there for Zoom.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you got here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about being late, though. It took a
No
little
problem at all.
longer.
No problem at all. And Stu Markham.
I am a retired councilman from District 6, live at the Huntley, and I've been through this process, I think, 3 times before. So I thought I should hop on and see if I could contribute.
Very good. Thank you, Stu. I see Bill Clutcher.
It's actually Jean and Bill Kuchar.
Kuchar? Excuse me.
This is Jean. Bill is here too. We live in Arbor Park. We've been in Arbor Park for about a little over 8 years now. And we're just interested in the recent trends in development in Newark.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Helga Huntley.
I'm sorry, I just joined. Are we introducing ourselves?
Yeah, we're just going to do a little round robin. So I think you're the last one.
Okay. Well, I'm Helga Huntley. I live in District 1. I've been in Newark for a bit over 10 years. And I'm also a member of the Conservation Advisory Commission. And so I've been following some of the developments in the city. I was also involved with the revision. I was paying close attention to the last round of the revision of the comprehensive development plan. So that's why I'm back here.
You did. I remember that. Yes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Thanks for everyone for attending. This is the Plan Commission is the lead committee for this, and they appointed a steering committee, and they also developed a plan for planning, and that's available at this link right here. It's on the City of Newark's webpage in the planning department, and under the comp plan you can access this link. And it kind of has the whole process to be laid out by the steering committee. We got a new person here. Let me add him in, Andrew. And part of it is to do community outreach and for us to engage the public. The comprehensive development plan, it covers land use, but it covers how all these kind of areas of planning link together. So it covers, of course, land development, transportation, annexation, infrastructure, housing, environmental quality, open parks and open space, and economic development, and how all these things work together and coordinate. And we do this to, of course, involve a broad array of ventures to guide developers and landowners, but also to coordinate with city staff and county government, as well as state government, and also to do this outreach to establish a shared vision and build an informed constituency, to reach out and talk with residents, have them talk about local planning issues and how they'd like the city to progress in the future. When we did this is an update to our Comprehensive Development Plan 5. So that, and it's called 5 because it was the fifth edition. Our first plan was in 69, I want to say, or about then. And this is our fifth edition. And in this one, we had a resident survey where we asked people what they liked about living in Newark and what they didn't like about living in Newark. And the number one answer for what they liked about living in Newark was that it is a college town. And then another popular answer was it's their hometown. It's a place where people grow up. And so for this plan, we sort of wrestle with this sort of two parts of Newark. It's a hometown where people grow up, we raise our kids here, we retire here. So this is our hometown. It's also a college town in the sense that if you ask someone living outside our community what their thought about Newark, what they associate with Newark, they associate it as a college town. And so with that, there was a book about college town written, it was intensive studies of college towns. And with college towns, there are a number of associations that people make about college towns. And they're youthful places, that there are places where there's lots of creativity. There are places where the population is affluent. It's a place where people like to retire. It's progressive, it's free-spirited. And so that's a very appealing feature for a lot of people about Newark. And so with this Comprehensive Development Plan 5, we sort of also embrace that we're a college town, and that this is a positive thing. It's something that we can market ourselves as, and again, fully embrace it. Developing our plan, we used the University of Delaware's Complete Communities Toolbox, and we were very inspired by this. And it had a number of principles. One of them is at the top here on the side, Complete Streets. And Complete Streets is against the old model where streets were built for cars. Complete Streets is you build streets for all modes of transportation, so including pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit, not just cars. Cars are important too, but it looked at it more holistically. It also involves the efficient use of land. This includes infill development, developing land within the city rather than continuing always expanding greenfield, what they call greenfield developments, which is typically developing an outside farm and then putting housing on it, redeveloping inside your community. That it's a healthy and active, you can live a healthy lifestyle in here. It's an inclusive and active community, and also sustainable community. And these are all available. More information on these on the City of Newark, the University of Delaware's website for their complete communities. Through that, through lots of public meetings and outreach, it led to the development of a vision statement, which included 3 elements: a healthy and active community, a sustainable community, and we want Newark to be an inclusive community. And these things aren't separated. They have a lot of overlapping. For example, under a healthy and active community, we want Newark to be a place where you can live an active and healthy lifestyle. And so one way to do that is have lots of bicycle and pedestrian friendly amenities in the town. This is a place where you're safe to bicycle and safe to walk around. You not always have to be relying on cars, and you can do that. Well, that's also a component, since walking and bicycling and taking transit are also part of being a sustainable community. So it fits under this vision too. And finally, it fits under an inclusive community, because if you have a community that you can walk and bicycle in and take transit, this is a place where it's good for kids to grow up because they can get around town on their bicycles or walking. It's a place where people can retire because they don't have to be relied on their car. They might have access to transit. Maybe they can't take their car as often as they would like. And so this is a community where they can get around in. And so that's what the color coding is, kind of how these things were related. And parks and open spaces for a healthy community, but it's also for a sustainable and inclusive community. And so so these are kind of the characteristics that we think make these 3 elements of our vision. I'm going to stop here. And is there any questions on kind of that first part, intro to our comprehensive development plan. Are any comments or questions? If not, I'm just going to go ahead and go on. We can always come back to these slides if something comes up. I'm going to kind of switch gears into some of the successes of the current comprehensive development plan, or things that have initiatives that have come out of that plan. One of the first ones, and I think Helga just referenced this, was the Sustainable Newark Plan. Comprehensive development plans are very broad documents. They, as I showed in the one slide, they cover a wide range of topics, and you can't come up with solutions and in-depth policy proposals in a comprehensive plan to cover all the areas that it covers. So what we do is we establish action items. And so our vision was to become a sustainable community. And we had a chapter on environmental quality that laid out some action items and ideas for Newark to be a sustainable community. But one of the comments we heard was that we really need to do a more in-depth study and analysis and come up with some real strong benchmarks and goals for become a more sustainable community to reach our vision. We need to know, what does that look like? And so an action item was to develop a sustainability plan. We got a DENREC grant, and this was a committee that met for over a year, had public meetings similar to this, except there wasn't no pandemic at the time. And they come up with 4 themes. One is we respond to climate change, which focuses on green energy, renewable energies rather than fossil fuels, and becoming more into using green energy, renewables rather, and totally weaning off to net zero on fossil fuels. It also covered what we're talking about now, which is planning. The way we plan and develop our town impacts how sustainable we are. So if we develop in a way that, again, is pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, and transit friendly, we can live a more sustainable lifestyle. It also looks at things like mixed use buildings, because that goes into being a walkable community as well. Finally, we have green buildings, making our new buildings more green and environmentally friendly, and also preserving our natural environment. And so those were the 4 themes or initiatives of that plan. Another initiative of the plan was to develop a transportation improvement district. So the old model, or the typical model, is a new development comes in. If you could imagine a street, and a section of that street redevelops, and there, let's say it goes from a house to a small apartment building, and it's determined, they do a transportation study, and they determine that there's no significant impact and no new amenities need to be created to support this development. And then another development happens on that street and the same assessment. But after a while, after several developments, pretty soon you have a lot more new development on that street, and now there is an impact. And so now we have to make improvements. And so sometimes that developer is on the hook for all the improvements that the other developers didn't have to participate in. And so what a TID does, a Transportation Improvement District, is a partnership with the state. We do a long-term analysis of our future land use trends. We look at property areas that are developing rapidly or redeveloping, and we project what things are going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. And by those projections, we develop a transportation model with the help of DelDOT's modeling to determine what kind of amenities and projects need to be in Newark to support the new development coming into the future, projected development. And through that, there's a payment. So all developers will pay a proportionate share into those costs when they develop in. So all developers pay into that, rather than once things get sort of where we have a great need, then the last developer has to pay into it. And so it projects, it's more of a long-term planning, a more equitable way of planning for future land use development and future transportation needs. And this was something that was a specific action item in our comprehensive development plan. I'm going to stop there. Any questions about those 2 things? I know those are both very meaty topics. I'll say that this transportation development Transportation Improvement District is going on right now in terms of the planning. There is a steering committee, a separate steering committee that has been meeting for over a year now. We've been working with DelDOT. We have a consultant on staff that is helping us organize this. And then this will go to Planning Commission and it will go to Council once this is developed. They meet once a month, and those meetings are open to the public. And we'll also be doing more community outreach on this as well to get your input on projects or where you think there are needs in the city.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, this is Allison. It seems like there's an opportunity to require less parking in individual developments as part of a transportation improvement district, and to provide the parking at a district scale to serve multiple projects instead of making each project provided on site. Is that something the city's looking at?
Yes. Now, with this, I don't know if they look at parking as much, but they are looking at development as its highest and best value. So, for example, and so if you can see my thing, this is our downtown. We're looking at this as a mixed use walkable community. So the density in there, we're planning for high density. Parking study has been a separate path, and there was one committee that met for over a year that did a big parking study review, and they gave recommendations that were accepted by council. A lot of this included further kind of study and development of ordinances. But yes, that is one of the recommendations was to reduce our parking requirements, to implement things like shared parking, or greater use of that, planning for lots. We have Paul Baumbach coming in. Welcome, Paul. And also decoupling parking. There was a good discussion about this at a council meeting 2 weeks ago, Monday, about, not having our downtown being a storage place of cars. When you build these parking lots and build, for example, our zoning code, which is a suburban style zoning code. It's planned for separated uses. And we apply this to downtown. And there's been a greater understanding among planning commissioners and council members about how, those suburban style parking requirements aren't as needed. And we're really just encouraging people to bring their cars. When you require 2 parking spaces per unit, well, you've already paid for those parking spaces, so you might as well bring your car. By decoupling, it's not already assumed that you pay for that parking space. You have to pay extra to park your car there. So maybe you'll choose not to bring your car there and pay a lower monthly rate. And so yes, that's been a big topic, and council is actually it's a hot topic right now, and council is exploring it further.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's a good question. Parking is one of my favorite topics.
Sure.
I have another question about this. What is the
Helga, yes.
relationship between the Transportation Improvement District and the Comprehensive Development Plan? Will it become part of the Comprehensive Development Plan, or is it sort of like an appendix, or what is the relationship there?
I think it's an appendix, probably. I mean, it was called for in the Comprehensive Development Plan, but this is on its own path to development. So coming back. So this is going through the same kind of planning process with a steering committee like the sustainability plan. Okay, all kinds of people coming in. And it will go through the same public meetings. It'll go through a planning commission and council for their ultimate approval.
Michael?
Yeah.
This is Howard.
Howard, how are you doing?
Pretty good. So when does the TID expect to have, I guess its report on what it's planning to do? Is that coming up soon, or?
Yeah, I expect it later this year, sometime in the fall.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how on schedule it is. It seems like we're getting close, at least for some initial review, but I think council's going to have something by the end of this year to review.
Okay.
Or early next year.
And the reason more people are coming in is because they've heard about this presentation you're making.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Well, so this is a part of it. And this is, again, these, as I said, these meet monthly. So I encourage your participation. Now is a good time to participate in this because we are in the heavy planning phases of this, especially deciding what kind of transportation amenities we need to include. And so different ideas are being discussed. And so it's a good time to participate in this. And again, these are posted. These are regular public meetings that are posted. Any other questions? These are good questions. Anything else on this or the sustainability plan? Or anything else I've talked about so far? Now I'm going to move on to the last kind of two topics, which is land development, and then I'm going to cover annexation. So land development is one of the more tedious parts of the comprehensive development plan. And this is getting a little in the weeds here, but what you see on here is a map which is called a future land use map. And this map has sort of the force of law. It looks like a zoning map, but it's actually separate than a zoning map. It's something that pairs with the zoning map. So these colors each represent a different future land use. And you can see in this area has a low intensity yellow. This is low density residential. And this is land that's zoned, most of this is zoned single family. Most of this I believe is RS and some RD, which are kind of 9,000 square foot minimum lot size, medium lot size housing. Then you see a darker, brighter yellow, that's high density residential, usually for apartment multifamily units. You see orange, which is mixed urban. And this all Lewis University, which we give it a designation. One thing that's difficult to understand about is that when the zoning code, it's not a zoning code, but it has to be paired with the zoning code. So if you have a low density residential and it has that land use, then the zoning has to be something that is low density residential. If it's high density residential, it has to have a multifamily type of zoning that qualifies. If there is a change, then you in the zoning code, a lot of times it has to be a change in the comp plan or vice versa. So where this gets is this is sometimes people are tempted to to use this as a future planning tool, but for example, this parcel right here, which happens to be a school. And if the school was to go away, it would be a low density residential area. But let's say we thought that there was a possibility that this would be a good mixed urban commercial apartment area. I'm not proposing anything, I'm just being hypothetical. If the school was to, for some reason, go away and this was to redevelop that parcel, what we wouldn't want to do is give that the mixed urban designation, because we thought that it might be a good idea to make that a mixed urban area in the future. If we did, we would have to change the zoning to a mixed urban type of zoning which in this case would be either BB or BLR, which are two, like your downtown zoning. You'd have to change that within 120 days. And so a lot of times we normally don't want to do that for a development that we'd have no proposal on, for some future hypothetical development. Go ahead and change the zoning on a property and the land use designation. And so, so every time there's a new development, oftentimes when they come in and propose it, they have to do what they call a comp plan amendment, which we actually is when a developer comes in, we actually change this designation for them. And it makes it sound like we're always changing the comp plan. And that's not exactly the case. So the Plan Commission did some analysis and they determined that there's really just like 5 or so areas where there's a lot of what you call redevelopment. A lot of times single family houses in areas that are redeveloping into multifamily areas. And so, here are there are a total of, I guess there's 6 in this area. I think they've reduced these, but this is one of the old plans. And this is where you're seeing a lot of development. Usually it's a single family house turns into a multifamily, so you have to do a comp plan amendment. Most of the rest of the city is already set. There's really no large scale comp plan map amendments. It's usually in certain areas that are going through redevelopment and infill. And so we're looking at that. And so what they tried to do, instead of actually changing the map, they want to give planning commission and council guidance, that there was council wants to know that there was thought into development. So we look at these areas and we're looking at and how we see like this area, which is New London Road, how we see that developing it. And it gives guidance to council and planning commission without actually having to pre-change the zoning for them. It just gives guidance rather than doing the amendments. And so then when a redevelopment happens in that area and council does like it and agrees with that development that would enhance the neighborhood and it makes sense, then they could change the zoning and change the comp plan as a part of the subdivision application.
Michael, may I make a comment? This is
Yeah.
Jean. You're using the expression multifamily residence. They're not multifamily residences. Families are not moving into these redeveloped areas. They're multi-tenant. Multi-tenant.
Multi-tenant,
Yeah.
okay. In our
They're not
zoning code,
multifamily.
okay. In our zoning
I
code,
think that's important.
okay. We call it multi, but at your point, it's tenants might be more accurate, but it's called in a general sense multifamily. That means there's multiple units on a parcel.
Yes, but it serves as a euphemism, you know?
Okay. All right, anything else?
Yeah, this is one of those issues that I've been struggling with in understanding the purpose of the comprehensive development plan. Because if we as a community decide that, you know, this particular area around New London Road would be perfect for a higher density development, then why wouldn't we put that into the comprehensive development plan at the time that we write the comprehensive development plan, instead of just writing that in words, not giving it that designation, and then every time a development proposal comes along, we need to change our plan? Doesn't it make more sense to actually write the plan with what we have in mind and then not amend it all the time?
Yes, the Plan Commission did explore both approaches. Now, the reason to write about it and write the text and say we see that like this area developing as is currently existing is low density residential, but we see development trends as being high density in the future, is that it gives council and it gives council ultimately leverage. If you go ahead and give it the comp plan designation that's high density residential and already give them the zoning of high density residential, then the developer comes in with a by right plan, and they don't have to really do much to appeal. They basically can say, you know, we have a by right plan that meets the zoning, meets the comp plan designation, so we get, you know, you're generally forced to approve it. By giving this leverage to make them get a zoning change, we allow them to prove that this is a good development. So a lot of times in this area, maybe it's not a good development. Maybe that's not what we want. What they're doing, it's not what the community wants in this area. And their plan doesn't make sense. Maybe the architecture is not good. Maybe it's too dense. And so this gives council the ability to turn it down if they don't think that it's in the community's best interest. What this text amendment doesn't say in general, we think that we see a lot of redevelopment potential for higher density in this area, but if it's not going to work, if the developer doesn't put in a good proposal, then don't approve it. And that's where they're sort of leaning to. So they've been exploring that, you know, just change one. They were saying just change it all, but then.
But it goes both ways, right? So if we really would like to see a high density development in that area, and we don't change it in the comprehensive development plan, and a developer wants to build something that's low density there, then that's a by right plan, right? And that just goes through without any option of city council to turn it down. So I think as long as the comprehensive development plan reflects what we actually want to see for the development, that would be best.
Yes. So if you had, like here, someone could do low density residential and it would be by right. And so we decided that's the baseline. you can do low density residential. If you want to do high density residential in this area, you have to show us that this is a good development. And so if you, by giving them actually changing the designation, then you've already given up your leverage. Your council's already given up their leverage. They don't have to show that it's a good development. They already meet code. But by giving them guidance in text and keeping the designations the same, again, it allows council to know that we've thought about this and we think it's appropriate area for higher density if it's good development. But if it's not a good development, if it's not a good proposal, then they don't have to give it to them because they don't have the zoning, they have the discretion, they don't have the zoning, they don't have the comp plan designation.
Has the planning commission explored other ways to achieve that same goal, such as passing design guidelines to provide some guidance to developers about what exactly the planning commission or the city council would be looking for? Because there's ways to kind of get at both of those things, right? If you set it up ahead of time.
Well, it's interesting that I could talk more about something like that if there's other ideas. In a sense, what they're trying to create here are design guidelines. Maybe not extreme detailed design guidelines. Now in downtown, they do have a set of design guidelines, but it doesn't impact the entire city. It's more for, again, mixed use buildings. What they tried to do with this text is, and I know you can't really read this here. This is sort of a draft proposal that the planning commission developed, but they try, we want this kind of housing. It should match this sort of character. And that's what they tried to do in the comp plan. So they call it a focus area embedded in the comp plan. If you have some other ideas, we'd certainly love to hear them. Maybe we can discuss it here, but I could talk with you offline, or you can give you my email address and I can make it part of the thing too, if there are other ideas or if you know of other approaches.
Michael, question?
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself just who's talking?
Maybe it's more of a comment.
Okay.
I get the impression, I don't know what the zoning of different areas are, but I get the impression, to use your words, if the community doesn't like it, we don't have to vote for it, or the council doesn't have to vote for it. But it seems like the developers lay down threats of lawsuits, or actually file them, and variances seem to be the rule of the day for a lot of these things. Certainly the public has a lot of comments about the hotels going up along Main Street. And to use your words, community generally doesn't like them, but it's more like, too bad. We're gonna build one whether you like it or not.
Well, that's what this type of approach, this focus area approach, tries to remediate. When a developer has what they call a by right plan, then the developer does have more leverage to be like you described. But when they need discretionary approvals, like a zoning change, in the hotel cases, they needed a parking waiver, and I believe they needed some site plan approval is what they did. When you have these sort of things that the council has discretion on, then council has more leverage to get a development that is more what meets what they think the priority should be. Does that sort of answer your question some? Or I understand what you're saying. Developers kind of come in and they use those strong arms. They think they try to use their leverage, and that's part of the game, if you will. But what we're trying to do with this comp plan is not give up that leverage. And so when they have a comp plan designation and the zoning, if you give them, say in an area like on the west side of town, like in this area right here, if you give them the zoning and the comp plan designation, then they can come in and say, this is the development I want, and this meets all the codes. So there's nothing really much to discuss, right? But if they don't have all those, and council has discretionary, like for a zoning change, for example, which council doesn't have to approve a zoning change. They don't have to approve an annexation, for example, then the council has much more leverage.
They may have the leverage, but they seem to want the taxable income as an overriding principle.
Okay. Well, yeah, they consider their criteria. So it's council's makes the ultimate decision, and they establish their criteria and and that's what I try to give them in this comp plan. I try to give them the leverage so that the council can approve the development they want to approve, or at least have more leverage to, if not get exactly what they want.
Mr. Fortner, my name's Katie Hughes. I
Katie.
would have joined earlier, but the link wasn't working. So
I heard that.
thank goodness for my friend Paul Bombeck, who's tech savvy. He
Oh.
got me in.
Okay.
Anyhow, so the question to development on the plans that are submitted, say, for instance, the hotel you were just talking about, how much leverage or how much influence does council have in regards to the actual design of the building? You were talking about how you pick certain areas to be able to fit in with the facade and with the design of that part of town. I.e. the building that wants to be replaced, Starbucks, that whole complex. Looking at the artist rendition, that looks humongous. And it doesn't look like it blends into the whole way downtown area looks. So how much leverage does council have into getting these developers to change their plans to make it look more suitable to what our downtown area looks like?
Sure. There are design guidelines downtown now, in a situation like the two projects you referenced now, they would have had the comp plan designation already, and they would have had the zoning already. So those are two pieces. Now, I believe at least one of those, they were going for site plan approval. And then another one, they needed relief from the parking requirement. And so that gives council a little leverage. And so they have to, and that's why I understand you don't like the look of the building and near the buildings.
Well, it doesn't fit into the way downtown looks.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing the whole appearance of what Newark looked like.
Sure,
and for those of us paying taxes that live here 12 months out of the year, and it seems like they're gearing it more towards students than they are towards the people that actually pay the living tax. And that's my concern. And I've been here for 20 some years.
Could you say your concern again? What's your concern? I understand you don't like the way the buildings looked. And
I'm concerned that the people their audience is not the people that pay the taxes. It's the people that come here only 8 months out of the year.
so
And that's all the developers are working towards, to get that instant cash. And, it's kind of sad if if I want to spend another 25 years here, what's it going to look like? It just seems to me, you really didn't answer my question, but it seems to me that council doesn't have any control over the way things look at on Main Street or London Road or anywhere else in the city limits. So is that what you're telling me, that they don't have any control?
It's a very technical question. They do have controls. How much control? Are you allowed to just turn down a building just because you don't like you don't think it's pretty enough?
Well, it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to fit in with the rest of
at
least the university is building new buildings that fit into their scheme.
Sure.
Michael, aren't for downtown, for the Main Street corridor, aren't there design guidelines? There used to be a design committee that used to ensure that any new proposal met that criterion that was just brought up, that it should fit within the streetscape of Main Street. Is that still in existence?
Well, just to clarify a little bit, they didn't ensure anything. They did a review and they gave a recommendation. And no, it doesn't. It went out with the Newark Partnership. That committee is now, it's essentially me. I do write design reviews using the 2016 design reviews that they made. And I did write very not exactly positive reviews of certainly the 141. It wasn't. I did criticize a lot of it based on those design guidelines that were established by that committee. The hotel I gave, it closer met the design guideline reviews. But they would give a recommendation to go to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission, of course, gives a recommendation to council. And it is a consideration, and council can take those in consideration. Otherwise, those buildings to some extent met the code, but they do have some discretions.
But so maybe
Yeah.
we can distill the comment that Katie Hughes just made as a recommendation to the steering committee that's doing the revision of the comp plan, that they should insert something in the comprehensive development plan that requires, especially downtown developments, to meet design requirements, and whether they want them to be spelled out in the comp plan or whether that's supposed to be something separate. I think it is, I agree with Katie that it's a good idea to have some limits on the kinds of design that can go into our core of our town.
There is a lot of what we're talking about is our deep zoning code types of issues, more so than comp plan issues. And so in the comp plan, we are working on something where there's going to be a review, and councils, this is a hot topic with council right now, reviewing our BB zoning districts. And it's going to address, the height of buildings, design guidelines. And so that is what you've talked about is definitely going to be what we call an action item. It won't have all the answers, but it's going to be something the council, the planning commission work on probably next year.
Okay, so you think it's more appropriate in the zoning code than in the comprehensive plan?
Well, yes, it's ultimately a zoning code issue. Those buildings that you don't like, there a lot of what you don't like is permitted in the zoning code, and they're meeting lots of parts of the code. Now they're also asking for relief on some things like setbacks, but and so council does have some discretion there. Of course, the parking. But so it is a zoning code, and we have certain incentives that allow developers to build taller buildings, and then when they take advantage of those, and of course, when another big part of it is our requirements. That's what is causing those size of buildings as well. And when you're trying to build a building and you're trying to meet the parking requirements that's in our zoning code, you wind up with a very big building to get the units and the parking. So yes, it's a good point. I know some of these buildings that are coming up recently are they're controversial, and these are all good comments. It is something to look at our zoning code and how we provide the right incentives to get the kind of design and development we want.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there not a way to, I know some things are approved and they are what they are, but can the height requirement be changed so that we don't end up with, high rises all down Main Street?
So yes, that would be in the zoning code. And so in the comp plan, what we'd have is something where we're hearing these concerns. Of course, it's already a hot topic with council and the public to look at our zoning code and determine how high do we want to go, if we could lower it in our zoning code. So it would lower the maximum height. That could be a change in the zoning code again. Probably not something, and so the comp plan, the way it would address is to look at reevaluate our BB zoning district and look at our incentives. I'd like to get back when we have time to the housing topic, because that's another hot issue. I would like to just get through the rest of these slides. We are getting close to time. We can go over. I don't mind going over for anyone that wants to stay over, and just to cover annexation real quick. Is that right? And then we'll come back to some of these topics. We already covered that slide. Just want to cover real quick the annexation. One of the things that the committee will look at is the extension of planning area 7. This map right here where you see my mouse, the area in tan is the current municipal boundary. And then areas that you see in this sort of reddish areas are places that are in our annexation plan, meaning that in the next 5-10 years, we see this as eligible for annexation, or a place that could annex. Doesn't mean the city will annex the property. It doesn't mean the city only annex property when there's the property owner wants to be annexed and petitions the city to be annexed. But in order for the city to annex, it has to be in one of these planning areas. And if it's not in the planning area, we have to go to the state and request an amendment. And that's what happened just recently. Whoop, I got a dog coming in. This area right here, there was an application to annex this area, and this wasn't in one of our planning areas. So we went to the state and went through a process to add this as a planning area. And this is the kind of a blown up map of it. Now, when the application came in, it was to develop this parcel. And then next Monday, there's going to be a public hearing on this parcel right here. This person would like to annex in and keep it as a farm. When that application came in, we looked at this whole area and we decided this whole area as Plan Area 7 met our criteria for a possible annexation area, in the sense that it is all adjacent to the current city municipal boundary. And it is surrounded by the state park system here and then the county park here. So it's sort of kind of enveloped in these sort of out of play areas that we won't annex because they're public lands. And so this was a natural fit for this area because a lot of these are on sewer and septic. Septic, and they're could fail, and that they'll want to take advantage of our city, our sewer and water. And so when this whole area was presented to the council, they decided that they would like to wait for this review to take place, to have more of a study of this area and not just make it all of our planning area at this point. And they just wanted to deal with the area where there was an application in front of them. And so this is what they made as the planning area and left this out for now. And so part of this review is to examine, again, this area to determine if it's appropriate for future annexation. Again, it doesn't mean that the city will annex it. Every annexation application is discretionary, so council can review it and decide it's not appropriate to annex the area and vote no. That's indeed happened in this parcel right here recently. They came in with a proposal to annex into the city, and council reviewed the application, decided not to annex it. And so this is, so that's part of what this is. It's to, do we want to include a broader planning area for Plan Area 7, or just keep the current one, which is, again, this which only covers the immediate developments in this area.
Can you tell us exactly where that is, please? For those
Sure.
of us that can't read this map.
This map is hard to read. Yeah, let me see. I'll blow this up a bit here.
Is that off of 72? Is it Possum Park Road?
Yeah, that's Possum Park Road. Let me try to get this off. So yes, this is Possum Park Road. This is Old Paper Mill Road. This is the woods of Levere right here, the woods in the Huntley.
Okay.
And so this is a very northern tip of the city. And I was trying to show you on this. I was trying to expand it, but I wound up kind of failing on
Is that before Fox Run?
Fox
Hill or Fox something?
Hill. I'm sorry, I don't know sometimes I don't know the geography, but this is Paper Mill. This is the shops of Levere right here. And this is a state park, county park system here. So it's the very northern tip of the city of Newark.
So it's off 72, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is
Right behind, it's right behind the Walgreens, on the corner of Possum Park Road and MB&A. Right. That corner.
That makes it more relatable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With those two areas, I can answer questions, or again, after this is sort of an open discussion. We can talk about anything you want at this point. Go back to some of the topics we were discussing earlier. Just open it up for any questions or comments.
Quick clarification on this Planning Area 7. The smaller area is already included as Planning Area 7, is that right? Or has that already been annexed, or what is the status of that?
Sure. Yes, this area right here, this is Planning Area 7 as it currently stands. This is what council adopted as Planning Area 7. Is this in this darker yellow? So it only covers this. This has been annexed into the city. It's going to be a 10 unit development, 10 single family houses. This is on the agenda for this coming Monday. This is a farm. And the person wants to wants to keep it a farm. And so along with that, there is we actually had to change our zoning code to allow a farm use. We didn't have farm use in our zoning code, and councils has had some meetings on how to best do that. And so we have a new proposal for them, and also they'll review this property and whether they want to annex this or not.
So then for the revised comp plan,
Uh-huh.
the yellow bit, I guess, east of Paper Mill wouldn't be part of the planning area anymore, right? Because that's already part of the city.
Well, that's true. Once an area is annexed, if these three parcels, well, these two are already in, and then this one will be, this will already be in the city. So this will be part of the city, and then the surrounding area will be the planning area. That's technically true, yes.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Michael, question, comment?
Yeah, who's talking, please?
This is Bill.
Bill, hi, Bill. Okay.
It's my understanding UD not too long ago made a decision to increase their student population quite a bit with no regard to housing. And it seems like the city, for whatever reason, has taken upon themselves to assume the responsibility of providing student housing. And it seems like everything that's being built is student housing in mind, regardless of what fancy euphemistic name the developer throws at it. Reality is, we know what's coming. Why, and assuming that I'm correct with that, why is the city taking on the responsibility of ensuring students have a place to live?
Sure, thank you for that question. So that's certainly a hot topic that is been talked about a lot again, and council, it's on their front burners as well. And we've had, of course, several housing studies on this already, and it's certainly a big focus. It is true that the university has discontinued a major dorm building, and they've acquired. Let me see. I'm sorry if I can get this down. Do you guys just see the PowerPoint presentation, or do you see this? I don't always know what you guys are seeing on there. Like I had the PowerPoint presentation, I see your images, but you don't see yourselves, right? You just see the PowerPoint?
We see your shared screen, which is currently the PowerPoint. And then if we choose to, we can have the little boxes of participants.
Okay, so you're not seeing, that's on my screen. Okay, good. So I think this might be the best map. It's true that, again, they took down a dorm, and then there, if I can find it, I guess it's this right here, right? This is the apartment that the university acquired. And this used to be privately owned. Now the university owns it. And this essentially, according to the university, the university says they've maintained the same amount of housing units. But really what they did is they took away, I think it's like 800 units on that, when they took out that thing. I mean, from our point of view, it's less student, there's less dorms, and they've acquired things that were already student housing. And so to your point, so you describe it, and I've heard it described this way a lot. It's like the city is taking it on. Is that I would say it's the private development community is taking it on. They're providing this housing. We think this housing works around the campus. It's true that there's a lot of redevelopment. A lot of it is targeted to students. They have growth. I think the city definitely supports the university building more housing. I think there's been lots of encouragement for the university to build more housing, student housing on their campus. They have their own thoughts on that. I mean, but I think the city would definitely support them building it. It's also an opportunity for the city, and the development community to provide this housing. And what we want to do is we want to focus where that housing is. And so part of these focus areas are areas where we think, not so much this area right here, because that's apartment housing that will be hopefully not necessarily for students, but we developed a housing plan that was provide student housing, but we don't just want to be a place for student housing. We want to provide housing for other people too. It's true that a lot of redevelopment is targeting student housing. When they do that, we hope to focus that development in certain areas around the campus where students can live and work and go to class and live a sustainable lifestyle walking the campus. We think students want to live in these areas and bring them out from the outer neighborhoods. We think it's better for the students to live near and on campus and be able to walk to class every day and not need to be dependent on their cars rather than live outside the city and have to drive in as a rationale for this development approach. When student housing is built, there's this kind of a supply and demand approach. There's a high demand for student housing. When you build that housing, it brings students in, but it also opens up this place that would have somewhere else in the town that would have been rented to a student that now can be available to a non-student, family, for a family rental, especially in the residential neighborhoods. We want to keep those places, we want to attract the students in the areas around the campus and allow places around it, even apartment buildings that can meet the demand for non-student housing around it. So every time a new student housing building is built, it just takes the pressure off the outskirts areas and surrounding residential neighborhoods, getting the students out of those neighborhoods and into areas around the campus. And that's part of the rationale. I know I'm kind of jabbering. I don't know if I explained that too well, but that's part of the rationale that we're trying. If you don't build those places, if you don't build this new student housing, the housing is, there's just going to be more and more competition for all the other rentals in the town. They'll move into the residential neighborhoods more and more in the outskirts and even outside the town, and then have to drive in. And so that's kind of a general approach. I'm sure I'm not convincing you, any of you, but or many of you.
You're not convincing me.
Oh, okay.
One thing it does do is takes the pressure off the UD to build student housing on their own campus. They'd rather use the city of Newark campus.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
So I think that I completely understand where this comment is coming from, right? There's a lot of resentment to see all these student high rises coming up along Main Street, along the parts of our town that, yes, they're near campus, but they're also part of our hometown, right? But I would like to point out that there's a flip side to this argument. Like, for example, the new development that's going in where the Dickinson dorm used to be, right? So that used to be a dormitory by the university, and the university sold off that property, and now a private developer is putting in student housing there. And it's actually better for the city because that way at least we get some tax revenue out of that. Right? If the university had rebuilt a dorm there, the student housing would be the same, right? It would still be student housing, whether or not it's UD campus, but the city doesn't get the tax revenue. So I think there's actually an advantage to it being private development on the outskirts of the campus, on the edges of campus, where otherwise the university could absorb that land and build the property, the dorms themselves, but the city wouldn't benefit from it. So it's just a flip side, I guess, for that.
Thank you, Helga. I'm going to need you to come to these meetings more. I mean, you're very well explained, I think, and certainly that is it is true. Those developments do bring in revenue for the city, and it makes our services, us provide more services for our residents. They do, and if they're the university, well. And when those areas around the university, when they redevelop, it means the university will never be able to obtain those, like Benny Street, where the university could just buy all those properties. Once they're redeveloped, it's much more expensive for them to buy, and so they will never expand. That'd be the worst case scenarios for them to buy all of Benny Street and then put dorms on it. It's better to have it as private development, in my view.
Mike.
Is there any idea about what's going to happen with the towers?
The towers, to my knowledge, the university is planning on tearing down. I don't know of any other redevelopment plan. I mean, I would love them to see to build more dorms there. I mean, the city would certainly be in favor of those kinds of things. We don't want them not to build dorms, but to my knowledge, they're just going to tear it down. The university isn't a part of our comprehensive development planning. They don't have to follow our zoning code. They don't have to, do what we say, but we
yeah, because
so that's all I know. Yeah.
it just seems like that's one place where we're used to tall buildings. So why not build 2 more tall buildings
Yeah.
and take the pressure off of, if it just kind of feels like, all right, they closed that. And so now all this stuff is being built all over the place
Mhm.
to compensate for all those rooms that are not available anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, you're right. I mean, if the university was to build more dorms, I'd want them to build it. I think the city would want them to build on land they already own, and they certainly have that. We wouldn't want them to buy up all Benny Street and then put dorms on there and expand their footprint on. Because again, as Helga referenced very well, that it takes it out of our tax base. And when a private developer redevelops, even for student housing, I mean, we get the benefit of all that those taxes. And in Newark, the students, they do. Someone registered, they're not the taxpayers. They do pay taxes. When you rent, that property owner pays rent taxes, and they get it from the people that pay rent there. So that's why renters pay taxes too, because they're giving it to the landlords that pay taxes.
With the pandemic hurting a lot of our local business,
Uh-huh.
do you know what the city, if they're doing any kind of revisiting on how they're going to get more business on Main Street? Unfortunately, Home and Hearth is getting ready to close the end of
Are they?
March.
Oh,
Grassroots, went from being on a corner location to a small store. We have a lot of restaurants that are struggling because of the whole pandemic. But, is there any kind of recruitment or plan to be able to get those kinds of businesses back other than having just a street full of restaurants? Do you know?
sure. Thank you. So the city gets to take advantage of this pandemic money as well. And I'm trying, there's so much to your question. It's a great question. I get a little overwhelmed by it. So, because it's an overwhelming topic. Downtown economic development, of course, is a tough thing. And, especially with retail, it's very tough to get a good retail store downtown with not just the pandemic, but just how our purchasing economy has changed with online especially. And so our downtown has been, for better or for worse, kind of an economic cluster that attracts restaurants. And that has been one thing that's been very successful in downtown, our restaurants. And we would like to have a more diversified, shops. We did have more of incentives. Now we have the downtown, it's called the Newark Partnership. And they're sort of our economic development wing right now, where we hope to be working with them to market downtown and as an attractive place for businesses. There are a lot of things that, a lot of issues, like, for example, and our downtown rents are fairly high, at least that's what they tell me. And it's hard for, let's say, a mom and pop to kind of shop to open up downtown, and in addition to all the other barriers to open up in a retail store. And one of the reasons it is because the rents they can charge are high. Also, again, you're talking about parking requirements. We require a lot of parking requirements in these buildings, and it takes up space that could otherwise be used for more retail space. For example, we do a lot of under building parking, and some of those buildings, if you didn't require the parking, they could have shops all throughout that area and more commercial space. And by providing more commercial space, again, the supply and demand, you can reduce the price. If there's more space to rent, then they might have to charge less to get more tenants there. So to answer your question, it's a very complicated question, and it's nothing, the city just can't. We do have a packet that we can send out to prospective buyers. A lot of, like, for example, we used to have a Gap downtown, and places like the Gap, these kind of chain retail stores, a lot of their business strategies tend to be focused on the malls. The Gap we had downtown was very profitable, but their corporate decision was, we're already in Newark because we're at the Christiana Mall. And so why are we in downtown Newark? And so they pulled out. So it's a very tough, but we definitely want Newark to be a shoppable place where people can shop. And there is a shortage downtown.
Thank you very much. It sounds like you need to get involved with Newark Partnership.
That's an excellent organization to get involved with. And they also work with nonprofits. And it's an emerging thing. So yes, I very much encourage you to be with them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, you
What
made
do-
Okay, someone,
Michael, you made the comment that
Yeah, Bill.
the need for parking and stuff in the retail shops. Why not put the parking up top and retail shops down the bottom?
but parking up on the roofs?
Yeah,
Huh?
top 2 floors, top 3 floors. Put the retail down below.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know what that would look like. I mean, usually that's on the ground floor and they build up and are in the back. So it's an interesting idea.
It's not my idea.
It probably doesn't make
Many cities
financial
do it.
sense, huh?
Many cities do it.
They put the parking up on the top.
Absolutely.
Sure. Well, I mean, if it innovative idea. Thank you.
So I had another bigger picture question
Sure.
with relation to the sustainability plan. When we wrote the sustainability plan, our idea was that it would sort of I don't know, give guidance to the development as well for the city. So the principles that are in the sustainability plan were supposed to apply to new development projects. And I'm wondering whether there are plans to formally incorporate it into the comprehensive development plan. And if there aren't such plans, I would like to urge the Planning Commission to do that.
We know what, so part of this update is to do those kinds of things. So this Sustainable Newark plan didn't exist when they adopted the comp plan and comp plan 5, but there was an action item that said, we should look at this further and develop some sort of planning, right? So part of what the new thing, probably in these chapter 7, would be to have a section on the Sustainable Newark. There was something that was achieved, and this is what the results of it are, and to map out those implications. And of course, that plan itself has its own set of action items that are being actively worked on. So if nothing else, like we did with the Newark Bike Plan, is adopting it as part of the comprehensive development plan, I think it would be appropriate, or something similar to that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes. All right, anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Fortner, this is
Yeah.
Andrew Feldman, and
All right.
how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. So I wanted to go back to the planning area 7.
Sure,
so-
I'm gonna bring up this. You want me to bring up the slide?
Sure, you can if you would like. That would be great.
Okay.
So I just had a question. Is that being reviewed to reincorporate the original area in? Is that what you were saying, that it's being discussed to reincorporate the original area in, or would that have to be a new planning area now, since that wasn't approved in the first go around?
Okay, just when I say reincorporate, that to me signals like that it would be annexed. What we want to do is create a plan area 7, or maybe create a plan area 7 if council and this committee would like. And so the idea is, right now, it is this is plan area 7 as it exists right now. This was adopted by council. This was the original proposal for that. Council didn't want to do this whole area right now. They wanted to wait for more of a thorough kind of comp plan review rather than to add it on just as council. They wanted to go through more of a process like this. And so this is probably, again, none of these proposals are definite yet, but this is something that may be put forward in the comprehensive plan as a new planning area, as an expansion of the current planning area, may be the appropriate term in this.
Okay.
It might be smaller.
So it would just be an expansion of the planning area 7. Would that be correct?
That's right. It would. Right now it's this, and we're looking into, is this appropriate or bigger or smaller? And that's the kind of comments we're seeking and we'll be discussing. And so if you have a thought, what do you think?
So I actually live within the original proposed annex area, the planning area 7.
Okay.
And then it was reduced in size, and I sat in on those meetings, and I know you know, one of the things that struck me as being a little bit odd is I know in the planning commission unanimously recommended the original planning area, and then council rejected that because they said they wanted a smaller area. And then if I remember correctly, the planning commission, I believe there were more no votes than yes votes, or it may have been tied, I'm not sure. But then the planning area went forward through council. But no, I was in favor of both. I think and I think you made a great presentation on it to begin with, that seemed like a very logical area. And I think that the members of the planning commission that were not in favor of it the second time, the new planning area that was actually accepted by council, their reason was because they liked the first proposal, if I remember correctly. And so, and the other part to it is I really do not see a negative for the city of Newark in putting that in the future annexation area, because as you've said before, it's totally at the council's discretion whether or not they annex someone in based on plans or proposals that are presented to them. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So really there would be no risk to the city of Newark for putting them in the future annexation area. For putting that area in the future annexation area, there could only be benefit really if the city of Newark would see the need to develop that area. Would that be accurate?
Those are all accurate. Yes, it's
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll bring up one more point.
right.
Actually, this is an idea from Mary Claire, who is also on the call tonight and who is on the CAC with me. And she had brought this idea up at the CAC meeting before, that it would be nice if the comprehensive development plan included some characteristics of what a new area, the characteristics a new area would have to meet in order to be considered for annexation. Right. So if we, for example, in this particular area, we would like the newly annexed part of the city to be not just contiguous, but also connected for multimodal transportation, right? Things like that. Would be nice if there was actually some specification and it wasn't quite as arbitrary as to what will be considered for future annexation.
Okay, it's a good comment, Helga. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give credit again to Mary Claire. It wasn't actually my idea.
Right. Thank you, Helga. And I would just like to, add to that, because my concern for annexing this area, on that original plan it was made fairly clear that some of the county places probably would not want to ever join the city, meaning the Walgreens, the Tony's restaurant there, the liquor store on that corner. And so there's no way, and there was nothing for the developer to have to try to connect that, to be the one that works with the county or works with the landowners there. And I really think that needs to always be looked at when we're just adding things. And I don't think it can be an answer, as this area develops, we'll get sidewalks because we require that in the city. But that, in this case, may never be the case if some of this planning area never wants to be in the city. So I really feel that anything that the city looks at for annexation or in a planning area, that it has to be able to be attached to the city multimodally. And if it's next to county land, then I feel like the developer needs to work with the county to have that come to be.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you, Helga, for getting me started.
All right. Anything else? We're at 8:20. I know I promised to keep you here for an hour. We got along long. This is an excellent discussion. It's probably the biggest group. Certainly the most challenging. You guys really picked my brain. That's very good. Thank you. I'll take any final comments. If not, thank you. And again, we meet last Thursday of the month. These are open public meetings for the steering committee. The next one's the 25th at 7 o'clock, and these meetings are posted and it's available. It's a go-to meeting type of application. So certainly encourage you to go to that if you'd like.
I guess one last question. Are there plans for more meetings like this with updates as to on the progress of this committee?
Yeah, we're going to do something else. This is sort of the initial kind of broad presentation to just get general comments. I think we'll be doing something to maybe probably develop proposals and then come back and maybe I'd make a presentation where we talked about what kind of things that the steering committee came up with to amend the comp plan or to update the comp plan. Probably before it goes to planning commission and council. And this, do you like this setting? Does this seem to work? What do you guys think of this? I mean, assuming the pandemic, I mean, it could be in July or something. Maybe we could meet in person, but then these are so easy sometimes. But so
Yeah, I think
yes.
I like having the meetings on Zoom or having that as an option. You know, if you want to be in person, you can be, but if you would prefer to stay at home, I love being able to do that.
Probably do both.
Yeah.
The planning department, we just kicked around the idea last week about the planning department itself would do a monthly meeting like this, where we would talk about new developments. And we're still working out the details, but it would essentially be like this. And we'd say, okay, we have this hotel downtown proposal. This is what we're looking at. This would be before planning commission. And we were thinking about doing something like that. Sounds like some of you might probably be interested in coming to that. We would do it once a month, like on a Tuesday. I don't know when.
So this would be the projects before they go to the planning commission. They would be reviewed.
Well, we just have like this again was a kind of a brainstorm idea that we would have a planning department Zoom like this on a monthly basis, where you would come in and we might have a couple of things that we would show you, or a proposal, an ordinance change, and we would talk about it and hear your comments on it.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that too.
All right. Yeah, so the Zoom format, I mean, I do like how simple it is. And
well, I wonder though if the older generation is feeling able to give their input, because like some of us had a hard time getting in, and like I'm a teacher and I'm doing Zoom all the time, and so if I was having a little trouble, I was like, oh gosh, you know, an older.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what happens to the long. I mean, I don't load up these links, but maybe something happened. But this is the first of all the meetings I've done. This is the first time where I've had people have difficulty go in. People, I'm Zoom on my account. We use this GoTo, which I find a little more clunky. Zoom, of course, is very simple. So I'm using my own account on this.
But if there's some way that like council members or people could get questionnaires out through email or something that's more friendly for all ages.
Yeah.
So more of the community can feel like they're being heard.
Well, ultimately we wouldn't just go to Zoom. We'd have to do in person too, and it would be we have to give opportunities for people to do other ways. That's one of the problems with Zoom, as you well noted. I mean, not everyone has access to this kind of computer technology, and they're being out with the process. Sure.
Well, I guess my biggest issues that I want to reiterate was with Main Street having more control of height and the look. Like these were things that were brought up. I just want to reemphasize. I think that's what I hear a lot, that the building's ugly, or, you know, and sometimes they say, well, they're just they're using the same brick. So what? It's, you know, make it look more beautiful and we'll be more likely to accept it a little more. You know, I was talking to Lang at the last meeting and, you know, I just felt like, oh, well, too late. They don't care. So it was I don't know. It's hard to watch, you know, when you used to have the, you know, buildings that were interesting and unique, and it's getting less and less that way. It's really hard to watch. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, thank you. With that, I think I'm going to close this out. And again, thank you all for coming, and keep your eye out for more of these kinds of these little types of meetings like this. Yeah, thank you.
Nice job, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you.